Spark released on April 25th to Magic Arena and in paper on May 3rd, with it bringing hundreds of new, powerful cards. Many being great additions to Standard, and some that increase the already high power level of top decks such as Esper Control. As well, new tools to make the best combo deck in the best of 3 Standard meta, Nexus combo, even better, and possibly increase its level to the point of being the best deck in Standard, which is really saying something, as it's already been banned in best of 1 on Magic Arena. And of course, the copious amounts of high power cards for Grixis decks being released has allowed the archetype to reach new heights and gave it a massive upswing in power, and in turn has caused it to see a sizable increase in play rate on Magic Arena. Boar has been a great new set so far, and sure, it made plenty of Standard decks incredibly powerful, it also introduced plenty of fun cards to brew with, and pushed to their absolute limits. Cards like Bolas's Citadel, just by design, is one of my favorite cards from the new set. Niv-Mizzet Reborn, which is just an absolutely ridiculous card that on paper should never work, and in practice it's even worse, but that doesn't mean it's not an awesome card and a sweet concept. And of course, you have Vivien's Arkbow, which is leagues above the power level of the last 2 cards mentioned. A value engine that is 1 and a green that allows you to tap it and pay X. Then discard a card, look at the top X cards of your library, choose a card amongst them with converted mana cost being X or less, and place it onto the battlefield. Then the rest of the cards basically go into the Shadow Realm, or more commonly referred to as the bottom of your deck, but honestly you probably shouldn't expect to see them again. This can turn duds in hand into powerful things like uncounterable Ilhargs, Palaka Worms, or simply give you an endless stream of creatures that is sure to overwhelm any opponent. Now, I feel like I should elaborate on exactly what I mean when I say a value engine or engine in general in this particular context. There are other types of engines, but they aren't really important for this video. The best at explaining it is that a value engine usually is just something that when it is active, it allows you to repeatedly dispose of one resource and turn it into another. For example, you could have an engine card that by discarding a card, it allows you to add a certain card from your deck to your hand, or maybe from your graveyard to your hand, or maybe it generates tokens, or just about anything. The idea for a value engine is to begin to produce more value over your opponent, whether that be through direct card advantage or through other means. From the first time I saw Vivien's Arkbow, I knew I wanted to brew with it. I've always been a sucker for value engine cards, the likes of Birthing Pod, Tortured Existence and Pauper, and Prime Seeker Vannifar. These have all been cards that give you repeatable value regardless of what point of the game you're in, as long as you can activate them, that is. But they work the best the longer the game goes, unless you have plans to combo kill your opponent. When an engine is properly established, your average draw will be much better than your opponent's, since depending on the engine you're utilizing, you can turn that one card you drew into potentially a whole deck's worth of possible creatures and spells. And this is why I enjoy value engines so much. In these last few particular examples, it allows you to have your deck be a Swiss Army knife of possibilities, and be able to attack from many different angles. Now this though is where Vivien's Arkbow deviates from the path of other value engines. If you build a deck with Vivien's Arkbow and have a bunch of one-of creatures that do different things in different situations and only work best in a few select matchups, but are mediocre in the rest, you're gonna realize your deck will be very inefficient and will not be able to properly utilize the potential of Vivien's Arkbow. Since when you activate it, you're looking at a set number of cards to find a creature, you want a large chunk of the creatures in your deck to be of a very high power level. Niche cards that work best in specific matchups will simply muddy the waters and cause Vivien's Arkbow to lose part of its value. When you activate Vivien's Arkbow, creatures you're going to want to be seeing are those like I mentioned earlier. Ilharg certainly had less of a splash than people were expecting, but the thing is, in an Arkbow deck, every aspect of the card is a huge boon to you. If you tap out at the end of your opponent's turn to grab an Ilharg from the top of your deck, and you happen to have a high value creature with a possible enter the battlefield effect sitting in your hand, it allows you to turn that card into damage to your opponent and to boost impossible card advantage or just more value. When Ilharg was first announced, people were speaking of it as if it was the second coming of Hazoret for Standard, and clearly it has not panned out in such a way. I haven't seen Ilharg played once on ladder since the release of War with a Spark on Arena, and while I'm not too surprised, it's a bit of a shame, because when it gets rolling, it feels unstoppable. But the thing is, it's just really not that great of a card. On paper, it looks pretty great. A creature that basically never dies and has the added bonus of blinking something from your hand onto the battlefield are certainly things that seem like they'd be worth putting into a deck. The issue is, Ilharg is just too slow, and a lot of investment with no real immediate impact. If he is answered right away, sure, you get to see him again in a few turns, but by that time your opponent could have already established enough of a board where Ilharg won't be enough, or they could simply hold up counter magic for the turn you draw it. But this is where Vivien's Arkbow can truly shine. the Arkbow is best friends with the gods from War of the Spark. It turns them into truly uncounterable, unkillable behemoths. When playing them normally, they can always be counters for a quick answer, but with Vivien's Arkbow, every activation is like playing an uncounterable creature from the top cards of your deck. Since the creature is never cast and simply placed onto the battlefield, there is really no window for response in Standard. When you drop an Ilharg from the top of your deck by an Arkbow activation at the end of your opponent's turn when they're tapped out, or maybe they're holding up mana for a counterspell, you're automatically going to get in a free attack or eat a removal spell. Now typically, the removal spell could be quite the hindrance to any god, since you have to wait turns to play it again. But when you have Vivien's Arkbow, you simply discard a card, pay 5 mana, and the third card down, you have your Ilharg ready to go once again. And they can keep trying to stop him, but eventually they won't be able to stop Ilharg, and you'll get in with an attack, drop a creature with its ability, and then just pile on the hurt with another activation of the bow. Vivien's Arkbow can get out of control incredibly fast. A single activation can turn a handful of lands into a Rekindling Phoenix you might not have seen for a few turns. Some more activations, and you'll have an army of creatures that your opponent can't stop. And when you get to the point where you and your opponent are top decking, drawing a land on an important turn can be game losing, but with the Arkbow in play, it allows you to dig much deeper into your deck and drop a creature you may have not seen for a while. You have endless card selection and incredible card quality with Vivien's Arkbow, and while it might not be the most competitive, I certainly think it has great potential. With control decks being one of the top contenders of the format, Arkbow can already have an auto win in those matchups on its own, allowing you to endlessly trade 1-for-1 with their removal spells and blanking any of their counter spells, because after a certain point in the game, you won't need to cast spells from your hand anymore. Imagine if a land in your hand could eat a Vraska's Contempt out of theirs. That'd be a pretty great deal. And Vivien's Arkbow allows you to do exactly that. And once again, if you have a repeatable, uncounterable 6/6 trampler coming down every turn, even the likes of Esper cannot stand up to that. Of course, the Arkbow isn't without its weaknesses. It is an artifact, so cards like Bedevil and other artifact removal are going to be a clear answer for it. And early game hand destruction can stop you before you even get rolling. But with Arkbow being a 2-mana card, you're generally going to be able to get it down pretty quickly. And unless your opponent has a turn 2 Thought Erasure on the play, discarding cards isn't much of an issue. You also have the worst possible scenario for Arkbow, the chance of paying mana to look at the top cards of your deck to see you have no creatures to pull out, meaning you probably just tapped out and got absolutely no payoff for it. But this should be slim to none, as a correctly built Vivien's Arkbow deck should be hitting a creature almost 100% of the time. As I said at the start of this video, War of the Spark has been a lot of fun to play and brew with. Vivien's Arkbow is shaping up to be one of my favorite cards of the set. With its unique design and powerful matchup against control decks, it's never disappointing when I play it. But what are your favorite cards from War of the Spark? Or what decks have you been brewing and tuning with the new additions from the set? Drop it in the comments and I'll check it out. But that's it for me. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more. Tune in next time, and thanks for watching.